all of them are 81% held by BlackRock. The senators, all held by BlackRock. That's why they can't legislate them. They can't regulate them because it's against everyone around them's interests to regulate them, even though their non-regulation is literally breaking the backs of America's economy, the small businesses, and the middle class.
All right, guys, Tiffany is back on the show. We are in Austin for South by. You ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
It's going to be a fun week. You going to any exciting events this week?
I don't do a lot of the music stuff anymore. I'm like old now, but I'm doing a whole bunch of meetups. I've done a ton of AI panels this week. I want to know what's happening with AI. I've been doing a lot of advocacy for open source AI. So I've been doing a ton of AI panels. There's a whole AI track this year and there's a creator track. Yeah. So that's kind of the two lines I'm hugging the whole week.
What else have you been busy with lately?
I've been working really, really hard in DC on advocating for small businesses. I'm pushing hard for reform of arbitration law because right now arbitration law is literally destroying our economy and destroying the middle class, small businesses everywhere. And I'm trying to help create the narratives that'll keep our illustrious administration on track, especially Bobby Kennedy's team. I really want them doing the stuff they promised.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to keep the appropriate amount of pressure there by working with other creators and stuff. A lot to do.
Could you explain arbitration law for people that don't know?
Arbitration law is kind of law that basically started with really good intentions. It was like big, huge corporations that didn't want to have to pay to train a judge that didn't understand a specific area of law. So like say it was maritime law. They would pass a law called the Federal Arbitration Act that made it so two parties could decide together to hire a judge they chose that had that area of expertise. So they didn't waste millions of dollars training a judge on law. And then they would get somebody that just understood the problem. It was created with good intentions and it was supposed to be for giant corporations on equal footing. Over the last 30 years, it has been eroded and bastardized to a point of unrecognition. And so now it's been used instead to create contracts with people not even realizing they're entering those contracts, forfeiting their right to a trial. And it's been exploited to this point now where they use it to hide things from the free market economy, to hide bad behavior, to hide unconscionable conduct. For 25 plus years, it was used to hide sexual assaults and forcing people out of courtrooms into secret courtrooms where no one could find out what had happened. That we actually got fixed in Congress a couple of years ago. But it took brave women breaking their confidentiality agreements to do it and putting themselves at risk. Now we're trying to get it changed because most people don't realize it's an area of law that has allowed a monopoly, a cartel of two companies, AAA, the American Arbitration Association, and JAMS, to control almost all of the 1.5 million cases in arbitration in America every year. And they do it with paid judges that have a financial interest in keeping big corporations happy, so they keep hiring them.
Wow.
And so people think when they're going to an arbitration, they're getting an alternative dispute that costs less than court. That's not true. It used to be. Now it costs way more than court. But they're also losing their ability to speak publicly. They can't go to the press. They can't disclose anything that happened in there. And they have a corrupt judge 99% of the time. And I say 99% of the time because in a general courtroom, a litigant would have about a 42 to 48% chance of winning against a big corporation in court if they get there.
Yeah.
In arbitration, you have a 1% chance, less than one.
Crap.
You are more likely to be struck by lightning in America than you are to beat a corporation in an arbitration. That is a fact. That is an actual statistic.
That's so nuts. So don't go to arbitration is what I'm hearing.
You don't have a choice. You have a bunch of apps on your phone.
Yeah.
You have a bunch of stuff on your computer. You probably have appliances in your house. You've probably gone to somewhere you had to sign a waiver at the front and go in. Every single one of those things, every app on your phone, the phone in your pocket, your car outside, your washer and dryer all came with an arbitration agreement. If you have a storage unit, you have an arbitration agreement. Unless you're with Extra Space, they actually give you an opt-out. But, I mean, every doctor's appointment you go to, arbitration agreement. You put your parents in a nursing home, it's in the paperwork when you sign in at the front door. You go to the vet, arbitration agreement. You go into a kid's trampoline park with your kid for a birthday party, arbitration agreement. And you don't know it because you shouldn't need a lawyer to go and live life. But that's where we're at now, is they've shoved these horrible, like unconscionable contractual measures into everyday living things that we just do as part of our normal social contract. You should not need a $900 an hour lawyer to go to a birthday party or to buy a washer and dryer. But without one, you don't understand what's just happened.
That is messed up. Yeah, if a nursing home mishandled my grandmother, I would want to be able to go after them, you know?
There's a woman in...
Starting a business shouldn't be complicated. I'm all about working smarter, not harder, and that's exactly what you get with Northwest Registered Agent. You can launch your business, protect your identity, and build your brand in just 10 clicks and 10 minutes. Seriously, 10 clicks, 10 minutes, and you've got your entire business identity handled. I've seen how overwhelming it can be to get started, but Northwest makes it simple, more privacy, more guidance, and more freedom to run your business from anywhere. They've been helping entrepreneurs like you for nearly 30 years. For just $39 plus state fees, they'll form your business, build a custom website, and even create your local presence, all backed by real business experts. And here's the best part. Northwest helps protect your identity by using their address on your public business documents, not yours. Want more? They offer premium mail forwarding so you get a real business address without compromising your privacy. Don't wait, protect your privacy, build your brand, and set up your business in just 10 clicks in 10 minutes. Visit northwestregisteredagent.com/social hour and start building something amazing. Get more with Northwest Registered Agent at northwestregisteredagent.com/social hour.
Kentucky that fought for that. She fought horribly because her mom was killed in a nursing home very abusively. And she had signed an arbitration agreement and an emergency admit. She didn't have a chance to review those papers. And it also had a non-disclosure agreement. It also had a confidentiality agreement. So she tried to go to the press. They threatened to sue her. Yeah. She couldn't go anywhere. And her mom was a force. She was the head of the teachers union for decades. And she couldn't help her mom keep fighting after because of that.
That's so messed up.
Yeah.
Holy crap. I did not know about these secret courts until recently, dude. That stuff blows my mind.
It's more than 45% of all cases that are civil in the United States at this point. And for most people, that's where you're going to end up. And you're never going to be able to go to the press. You can't tell your story. And that's why when people talk about like free market capitalism, that's a joke to me right now. We don't have that. We have crony capitalism. Because free market capitalism, it mandates transparency. It mandates that we can see when a corporation poisons somebody, when a corporation allows 38 kids to fall off their zip line and break every bone in their body and get brain damage, like Urban Air is dealing with right now in their secret arbitrations. When, I don't know if it's actually 38, by the way, when a corporation accidentally allows their food supply to become contaminated and kids die, when a corporation has been acquired by private equity, cut all their staffing, and 23,500 senior citizens died as a result.
Holy.
You should be able to talk about that. That's how the free market responds. That's the only way it works. But it's blind. We can't see the conduct.
Yeah.
You know, in the 80s, if somebody did something terrible, it was in the news. We talked about it when a corporation did something that was really bad for society, and our social contract was broken, and we responded with boycotts. We responded with protests. We forced our senators and representatives to apply pressure, our mayors to stand outside with us. We don't do that anymore because we don't know.
So nuts. Yeah, because you're signing NDAs. I actually don't sign any NDAs myself.
Good. No, I don't either.
I just don't want to take the risk.
Yeah.
Because I'm not intentionally trying to like talk about stuff, but you never know.
Yeah.
Could just pop up on an episode.
The answer is always transparency. The answer is always the light if you're on the right side of history. The only people that want things silent, they're never on the right side.
Yeah.
Never.
Wow. You just testified, right?
I did. I just testified before the Maryland Legislature. I'm headed to Wyoming, Arizona, and Illinois too. But I just testified before the Maryland Legislature on a couple of bills. One is HB 992 that is designed to protect small businesses from these types of court cases, from retaliation by big corporations, specifically ones acquired by private equity, just huge billionaire-backed corporations. And the second was HB 1186, which is a law that makes it illegal to force a woman to have an abortion against her will.
Wow.
Because that's what the corporation did to me during my abortion.
You serious?
Or during my arbitration.
Holy crap.
Yeah, they filed, when I was in my arbitration, what started my whole, war, my whole radicalization, if you will, of bringing stuff out into the light, was that during my court case, I was the president of a union. This private equity firm acquired us. They wanted to break up the union. And so in their efforts to do so, they made severe examples of me as the president to terrorize everybody. During that case, they hired private investigators. They paid $120,000 bribe to my landlord to evict, to not renew my lease. They bragged about all of it. It wasn't even like they hid it. They hired people to stalk me and my family. They hired a felon to forge documents in our case, a man that had escaped police custody to go after people that testified against him before. They hired this man and gave him my address with my kids there, right? And in the middle of all of this, I was pregnant. And they wanted to terrorize me. And they started subpoenaing me, even though I was on bed rest, to Arizona over and over again, right? Threatened me with contempt of court, which can put you in jail
Yeah, while
right?
you're pregnant.
While I was
Ever thought about how much EMF and radiation your body is exposed to every single day? From smartphones to Wi-Fi, modern technology never stops emitting invisible stressors that could disrupt brain function, hormone balance, and cellular health. That's where Aries comes in, the only scientifically validated solution designed to help your body adapt to today's technology. It's trusted by elite athletes, used by the UFC, WWE, Canada Basketball, and the Minnesota Timberwolves. It's backed by science, 100+ scientists, and 40+ institutions confirm its effectiveness. It's patented, peer-reviewed, clinically proven, and publicly traded Wi-Fi is the most tested, researched, and validated EMF solution on the market. Upgrade your biology to keep up with modern technology. Protect yourself with Aries today. Click the link below to learn more.
having a very difficult pregnancy from the stress of the case. And then they filed a motion to compel me to have an abortion in an expedited fashion that I did not want in this secret courtroom. Now, if we'd been in a regular courtroom, they couldn't have done that. It would have been immediately referred for bar review. They would have been referred to the Ethics Commission and they would have been dealt with because you can't do that. But in arbitration, nobody knows this. The law says explicitly they don't have to follow the law. They can do whatever they want. They can make up law.
Crap.
That's why you can't win there. They will find a way to rationalize giving the corporation the win because that's their bankroll. That's where the money keeps coming from. And so in a normal court, they couldn't have applied that pressure to me. They couldn't have threatened me.
Yeah.
Like literally, they sent emails to my counsel saying if I didn't have the abortion by 7 p.m. the next day, I was going to be penalized.
What?
Yep.
How could they do this?
And that's
Blows
why
my
I'm like,
mind.
I'm not going to speak about whether or not they took my choice. If you're a liberal, they stole my choice. If you're a conservative, I didn't want it. And they forced it on me. And I went to Republicans and I went to Democrats and I asked for help. And the Republicans told me they couldn't let it be known that a Republican state and a Republican appointed judge did it.
Right, it's a bad look for them.
And when I went to the Democrats and told them they're stealing my choice, please help me. I was in the Attorney General's office asking for help, literally in front of them.
Damn.
And I said, please help me. They're stealing my choice. And they said, well, coerced abortion is sort of the opposite of what we advocate. We say that doesn't happen. So it's not a good look for us. So they couldn't help me. The only person that actually tried to help me was Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Wow.
That's how he found me.
That's how you guys got in touch?
Yeah, he heard my story. He read about me in the New York Times. He read about me in the New York Post, read about me in Washingtonian. And one day I was standing at my kitchen sink doing dishes. And he called me and said, hey, this is Bobby Kennedy. I'd really like to talk to you.
Wow.
That's how I met him.
And you two have grown a lot since. That's really cool.
Yeah.
You went to his ball and you interviewed him 4 times.
I've interviewed him 4 times. He's interviewed me like 3 times. I did his podcast.
Nice.
Yeah.
What has been the biggest things you've learned from him?
Well, so first of all, when it comes to lawfare, he has no flavor for it, no taste. He is categorically in favor of First Amendment and advocates fiercely for First Amendment issues, which is a huge thing for me. We have that in common. He also is pretty good about acknowledging when he doesn't know something. The first thing he asked me after we finished really talking about what had happened to me and where I was at was whether or not I would help his team write a policy for what he could do to stop private equity from hurting families in his administration if he had succeeded, right? I think there's immense value in any politician admitting they don't know something and going to find the people that actually represent what they want to aspire to.
Yeah.
So those are big things for me. I also found him to be exactly who he said he was.
Which is rare in politics.
Yeah, like it's just who calls somebody while they're doing it was 9:45 at night. I thought it was a spam caller.
Yeah.
Who does that, right? And I don't agree with everything that's happening right now in HHS. I can't imagine the pressure that's being applied to him. I certainly don't agree with a couple of his early initiatives. I definitely don't agree with targeting free speech on campus, regardless of that speech. I'm Brandeisian to my core.
Yeah.
And
Was
I
that
believe-
HHS? That was... Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
And I was very open about my disdain for that.
I saw that yesterday. I was like, damn.
Yeah.
Why would HHS be in charge of that, though?
Because Trump called it a plague. He called it a mental health crisis.
Wow.
And he assigned it that way. But I don't agree with that. I'm a free speech absolutist. I believe that if we don't like that speech, if that speech is hateful, the answer is always more speech. We drown out that speech. I also believe that protest is absolute in this country. It's in the First Amendment for a reason. It's the bedrock upon which all of our rights are built. And so without it, we can't advocate for anything else. It's why I work so hard to save TikTok. It's why I work so hard on First Amendment issues. It's why I believe in freedom of the press, even though it's horrifically corrupted right now. That's why we're important as freedom of the press.
Yeah.
I can't wait for the earliest creator lawsuits about protecting sources. They're coming, and I'm really excited about it because we're going to see lawsuits where creators are going to be targeted for their sources, and we're going to have to be recognized as journalists to
Really?
protect those sources when they come.
So people are going to have to verify their sources?
No, what's going to happen is someone's going to try to figure out how we leak a story. They're going to sue us to find out who told us, and we're going to have to try to protect those sources under the First Amendment because we are becoming the ones that break stories.
Yeah.
It's not going to keep being Politico. It's not going to keep being CNN. It's going to be us too. And the First Amendment is that protection. And if we don't protect it in absolute, then it's going to get whittled away more than it already has.
It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah. I mean, you break lots of stuff.
Yeah.
You have lots of sources.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Ian was
different.
just in this chair.
I know.
He has so many sources. One of us is going to be the first case. It's going to come soon.
Jeez. That sounds stressful, though.
They haven't done it yet because we'll all rally.
Yeah. That's the good thing about X right now. People really rally behind you.
Yeah. Yeah, they really do. TikTok is that way in my world. I don't know if it's that way in everybody's world. It's that way too. I do really well on X. I do really well on TikTok. I don't like Meta. I don't play over there very
You're probably
much.
shadow banned there.
Yeah, I don't do much over there.
What's the status of TikTok these days?
So right now it's become this pawn in the Chinese trade war, right? It's being used for a lot of political flexing. But at the end of the day, I do think we're going to see it saved. Trump already opened the gate to get himself more time. He already said if it runs out, he's just going to extend it again. The law didn't explicitly allow him to extend it the way he did, and everything's going just fine right now. So I believe that's probably what's going to happen as they're trying to resolve a bigger trade war. I think as the economy deteriorates, which is very likely, they're not going to want people unhappy about more stuff. So I think there's room there for gains. And we're also not going to want to bankrupt 7.1 million small businesses in America.
Yeah.
I don't see that being something that Trump wants on his watch. In addition, he said just this year, what is it, like March 11th today?
Yeah.
He said 54 billion views on TikTok this year so far.
Crazy.
54 billion views. He gets like 10 to 12 times the traction on TikTok he gets on any other platform.
That's so nuts. 18 billion a month. Here I am happy with 100 million a month.
Yeah.
18 billion.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And that's not even accounting for, like, he's been tagged 12 million times in the last 2 months alone.
Yeah.
His inauguration was watched 54 billion times on TikTok.
Mm.
More than any other site. And all the conservative podcasters are getting more views on TikTok too. Theo Vaughn gets 16 times the views on TikTok he gets on his show.
He actually blew up because of clips.
Yeah.
I just found this out.
16 times the views on TikTok that he gets on his show.
Yeah. He became one of the top comedy podcasts from clips, from TikTok, actually.
Yeah.
That was part of his strategy.
Well, someday I'll get on that show.
I love it.
I love this show.
Yeah. TikTok's like, I don't know. I like it, but at the same time, I keep getting banned. So we'll figure that out, TikTok.
For what it's worth, this last month, a lot of people have wondered why TikTok felt different. And the reality is that we took 170 million people out of TikTok. And then when we tried to come back in, most people don't know this. You probably don't know this. A cartel was established between Apple and Google to ban it from coming back into the App Store. So when it got turned back on, they needed to patch us back into the larger world algorithm. And Apple and Google worked together to decide they weren't going to turn it back on. So when they turned us back on, all of our content ventured into other countries' algorithms. The mini walls were re-erected for over a month. And as a result, we had all these countries where it's illegal to talk about certain kinds of speech. We're only 9% of the TikTok viewership, but we're 26% of worldwide consumed content. So our content is constantly leaving the algorithm of America. And unfortunately, as we entered all these algorithms without the guard walls put back up, we were tagged for censorship over and over and over again. And that was because Apple and Google conspired to try to tank TikTok because they've lost tens of billions of dollars.
Wow.
Nobody realizes that that's why it's felt different. We are re-erecting those walls. That's why there was all this censorship, because we'd be talking about an election and then we'd enter El Salvador or Venezuela's algorithm where you can't talk about elections in one of those countries and we would get banned. It wasn't our algorithm doing it. It was that we were traveling around and we were getting censored in those countries because our guardrails were down. Our guardrails are slowly being erected, but you can only push through so many patches without ruining the user experience.
I could see that. It does seem like a lot of the big companies are in bed together. Like when they banned Trump a few years ago, they banned Andrew Tate all at the same time.
The enemy of my enemy.
Yeah, even the banking platforms, though.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Like all the banks, Uber banned him.
Oh,
like random apps were banning him. It was weird.
Ian was just on this podcast. Ian is how I learned that all the banks are just owned by one bank.
Oh, really?
All the banks are just owned by one bank, and it's We could say it's BlackRock. BlackRock's owned by Merrill Lynch. Merrill Lynch is owned by Bank of America, as I recall. And so all the banks are just owned by one bank, and they're all just one great big monopoly that's controlling everything, everyone, and certainly all of our politicians with very few exceptions. Thank you, Thomas Massey.
Well, BlackRock just had some influence in the Panama Canal deal, right? Which is a crazy thing to say. That one
Influence
company.
is really an understatement when you talk about the fact that while they don't own the canal, they now own all of the ports in and out of the canal, which means that they control all of the traffic in and out of the canal for any products to change ships on approach and on exit. And they can't go through those parts without making them happy. So yes, in effect, BlackRock now controls worldwide shipping of like 62% of the world's traffic.
Holy
It is
crap.
terrifying because our government needs that traffic to flow, which gives them more leverage than they already had. Our government needed that Panama Canal win, which gives them more leverage. We didn't need BlackRock to have more leverage. They already own the federal pension. Every single federal employee is beholden to BlackRock. Every single one.
Wow.
The president's pension is 81% held by BlackRock. Every staffer they have, their chief of staff, the defense subcontractors, the CIA's pensions, all of them are 81% held by BlackRock. The senators, all held by BlackRock. That's why they can't legislate them. They can't regulate them because it's against everyone around them's interests to regulate them, even though their non-regulation is literally breaking the backs of America's economy, the small businesses, and the middle class.
It's almost like these PE firms are so big now, they just have more power than the government in certain ways, right?
Yeah, I mean, like Blackstone is the largest owner of single-family homes in America. Blackstone birthed BlackRock. It was literally the spawn of BlackRock. And the spawner, I guess, is the right word. And BlackRock came out of there. But Apollo, Carlyle, BlackRock, Blackstone, Seidler, they're the ones I'm fighting in court right now. Seidler Private Equity. You've got Nantucket. You've got Ross Perot's family firm. All of these firms have grown and grown and grown. But in the process of growing, they are bankrupting pensions. They are bankrupting small businesses. They are bankrupting the middle class of America. They are strip mining wealth. And it's really hard to articulate it because people look at it and they're like, oh, but they're investing. There's money being made. There's money being made for them. When a private equity firm acquires a bunch of small businesses, they do it nefariously. There's one called Champions Group. I talked to Kennedy. He likes this one. There's one called Champions Group out of Las Vegas.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They've acquired like 60 or 70 HVAC companies around Las Vegas. Okay? And they did it while buying the name, image, and likeness of every small business owner so that they could keep them looking like independent businesses. Right? They keep the owner's face up there and they're like, we serve your community because we're part of your community. No, they're not. They're secretly owned by Champions Group, although they're going to be acquired by a bigger private equity firm soon. And then they unify the software across all of these different work trucks, right? You've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of work trucks going out. So no matter who you call because your HVAC unit is down, you're going to get a price now that's like, I don't know, 3 times what it used to be. You're like, I can't afford this. I can't afford this. They go, call somebody else. You'll see. Call these guys. You call them, $5 more. Call the next one, $10 more. So you're going to go back to that guy or you're going to go to one of these 3. You don't know they're all owned by the same people. They don't let you know.
Wow.
And you certainly don't know that they've unified their financing software. So they're going to hand you an iPad and be like, don't worry. I know you can't afford this new higher price, but I'll finance you because they already bought the bank. Okay? They bought the finance company. So now you finance it. They hand grandma this and say, you only have to pay $100 a month for 37 months to fix your frozen HVAC line that would have cost you $400 last year. She signs it. They don't hand her a truth in lending statement like they should have to by law. They just have her squiggle on an iPad and say they did all that. And then when grandma can't afford it because inflation has gone up but her Social Security hasn't, they foreclose on her home because for that $100 a month payment, they get to put a lien on her house.
Holy
and steal her house. And then they've also acquired houses. And they've also bought the roofing companies. And they've also bought the baby gyms. And they've also bought all the automotive companies. They are systematically exploiting it. They're selling the real estate. Vegas sold all of their real estate to private equity firms. Do you know that?
No.
Caesar's Palace?
When did that happen?
COVID. They needed money. They didn't want their shareholders to lose money when everyone was losing money. So they sold all of their real estate out from under the strip.
Who bought it?
A whole bunch of private equity firms. Blackstone owns a bunch. Apollo owns a bunch. They sold all of their real estate, and now they're paying like $6.3 million a month in real estate on just Caesars.
Wow.
6.3. They have billions of dollars now. If one economic downturn happens, private equity firms will own every casino.
Oh my god.
because they are leveraged to the hilt.
Well, casinos are hurting in Vegas right now.
Well, they're about to be hurting a lot more if there's an economic downturn because they don't own their land anymore.
Wow.
Because they literally allowed themselves to give up their biggest asset that carried them in every economic downturn before just to avoid disappointing their shareholders.
That would take the life out of Vegas if that happened.
Yeah, it would.
If it went super corporate like that.
It's about to.
That's scary.
It should be.
Wow.
People should be terrified of what's about to happen in Vegas.
Yeah, I feel like there should be some legislature around PE buying houses because, like, the average family cannot afford a house right now.
I believe that it should be absolutely illegal for any corporate entity to own more than, let's say 10 houses. Okay? I realize that there are companies that own like halfway houses to help women transition out of domestic violence shelters. We need those.
Yeah.
But if we made a law that was just as simple as that, private equity would just make 60 shell corporations so they could own 600 houses. Okay? They would make 600 to own 6,000 houses because that is still a better cost of doing business. We have to target them specifically. And we keep having these charlatans creating fake bills saying they're going to do it, like Jeff Jackson. Jeff Jackson didn't want anybody to know he'd taken a bunch of BlackRock payments and wrote a bill that could possibly stop them.
That sounds like a fake name. Jeff Jackson.
He was the guy that got famous on TikTok as a House member and then voted to ban TikTok.
Wow.
He was literally the TikTok legislator and then voted to ban TikTok under the guise of saying, I voted for it, but it's never going to pass. Guess what, Jeff Jackson? It passed. Don't worry, though. He kept it going long enough to get elected as the new Attorney General of North Carolina so that he can go on ahead and allow private equity to run amok there, which is where like 60% of private equity firms acquire nursing homes. They start in North Carolina.
Why do they start there?
Because they don't have any requirements that they have the skill set necessary to own a nursing home.
Oh, so if you just have money, you can...
You have money, you can acquire like medical facilities.
Which is scary because if you're sending your loved ones to a nursing home, you'd want them to have requirements, obviously.
Well, Carlisle didn't have any requirements and they killed, what, 23,500 senior citizens in 10 years?
How did they
through
kill
neglect.
Them? Oh, just not taking care
They did a study at the government, and they determined at this very detailed study after they bankrupted thousands of nursing homes and left all these people homeless, by the way, because that's what Carlisle Group did. They bankrupted all these nursing homes that these people were in that they'd acquired. The study found that through cut staffing, through neglected medical care, through neglected medication, through refusing to give expensive medications and keep the money that they were getting for those medications, 23,500 senior citizens died unnecessarily. Really good example. One of them was in a facility so understaffed that there was like one nursing assistant, right, for like 64 people. 64 residents, okay, which is an unconscionable number and not legal in most states. They had cut all the staffing. There was nobody there. This woman had severe bed sores. She had severe problems, and she was ringing the nursing bell and nobody would come. She got septic. She couldn't breathe. She finally called 911, and 911 came and barely saved her, but she had to lose her legs.
Oh my gosh.
They could have rolled her off her bed sores and given her meds at any time. Another woman, it was in her chart that she was unable to have any morphine because she had severe reactions to it. It was bolded everywhere. It was on her bracelet. And over again, this woman was saying, I have severe bed sores. They didn't want to treat them. They just needed to get to their next patient. So they started dosing her with morphine. She died.
Wow.
Like, this is what happens when we allow profits to be put ahead of people. When you see what's happening with Urban Air, which again is my monster, so I talk about them a lot. Right now I'm testifying in a little girl's case named Mia Hall. Mia Hall is a 7-year-old in Ahwatukee, Arizona, who fell off a zip line at an Urban Air trampoline park. I think we talked about this on our first episode.
Yeah.
They forced her into they're trying to force all of these people that fell off these zip lines into secret arbitrations. But they're putting a value on this child's life. She has severe brain damage. She broke all these bones in her body, punctured organs. 7 years old. And they showed up to court and said what her life was worth. Said, go to arbitration where you're not going to get any money for it. Not realizing that I was going to get sent a bunch of documents that said they knew she was going to fall off that zip line.
So you played it well.
I mean, I just did what was needed and gave the documents to the lawyers that they were not turning them over to. There were documents that showed they had flown in Chinese nationals to build their trampoline parks. I don't have a problem with out-of-country workers coming if they're on visas, but that's not what those emails said that I could see. So I'll say allegedly they flew in Chinese nationals to build these parks that kids were falling off these zip lines on.
Wow.
These emails showed that they lied to people to steal their intellectual property to build these parks.
Damn. Makes you wonder how many companies are cutting corners like that.
And they said it clear as day. They needed better EBITDA for their next cash infusion. So they were cutting people that would have prevented kids from falling off zip lines. Now they're fighting in court to stop me from testifying. Literally fighting with everything they have to stop me from testifying.
I mean, something like this could put them out of business, right? This is a big deal.
If this were 1985, 1995, it would have, because they wouldn't have been in arbitrations. This would be in court. It would have been a class action, and we would be out boycotting them in the streets for hurting kids. But we don't do that because we can't see it. It just comes back to arbitration. It comes back to the free market. It comes back to all of these nefarious contracts that we're signing we don't even know about.
Wow. That is scary. I'm glad you're educating people on this stuff because there's not many people talking about this.
It's just a hard concept to explain in easy terms, and they're counting on it. They're counting on a lawyer needing to do it and all the lawyers being beholden to the system and not doing it.
Not a lot of people can afford a good lawyer, too.
Oh, you can't.
Good lawyer's expensive.
I mean, the ones fighting me have spent like $11 or $12 million.
Holy crap.
On legal fees.
Yeah. I'm spending like 6 figures a year, and for me, that's a lot. Like,
one of the lawyers I'm up against was billing at like $1,300 an hour. One of the lawyers, they have an army of lawyers that fight me. But there's Madeline Cordray, Laura Sixkiller, and Norman Leon. Those are the three that actually were on the motion to compel me to expedite the abortion. Those three are all at DLA Piper, second largest law firm in the world. The world, okay?
wow.
Thousands and thousands of lawyers. And these three, between them, were billing at like, I think it's like $2,600 an hour between them. $2,700 an hour between them. Just racking up fees like this to come after somebody who had nothing. I couldn't give them anything. They knew they were never going to get anything. It was literally just to terrorize others and to stop me from testifying in these other cases.
The lawyers always win, even if their client loses.
1,000%. My husband is a federal attorney. He's not allowed to have a political opinion, but he has lots of opinions about the legal world. And we talk endlessly about the fact that bad things, bad laws, bad conduct, bad actions, bad things could not go into the darkness if it were not for unethical lawyers paving the way in blood. There is a lawyer that will take your money and get you what you want because we do not have the capacity to regulate them, because everyone in Congress is a damn lawyer and they're all buddies with lawyers and they all went to Harvard with lawyers. We are not capable of regulating the bar. I have an idea for how we could be. I think we could. If every single state, rather than letting the bar like regulate themselves, which is what happens now, is there's like a panel in every state that allows some lawyers to decide if what other lawyers do is ethical or not. They choose. We need to put citizens on those panels. And they need to have as much a vote as the lawyers.
Yeah.
They need to say this is not ethical, and we say so. Because like in my case, like I said, if they'd been in court, they would have been sanctioned. It's illegal in Arizona to coerce an abortion. And that's where they did it. They did it in Arizona. They told me, we'll go to the bar. That's where you should go because we can't make a judge testify. Their law won't let us. So you go to the bar. So I filed a bar complaint. This bar complaint was like 700 pages thick. It had every document. It had all of the motions. It had the threatening emails. It had statements from all of these other people saying they were being harassed by them. It had the documents that showed all of the ways that they had like stolen documents and all these other things. We send in a like 700-page binder to each of these investigators, and I get an investigator. He's serious. His name was Steve Little. He was like, this is horrible. This is the worst thing I've ever read. I'm taking this very seriously. And then all of a sudden he stopped calling me back. I was like, Steve, where are you? They said, Steve left. Unfortunately, got a really great job somewhere. Steve had been with the state bar for like 26 years. He wasn't getting a great job somewhere unless he was becoming an arbitrator. Turns out he wasn't. I found out he's actually still there. He was removed from my case and I was turned over to the guy that's second in command. He decided not to do anything. The reason they gave, we don't want to sanction these lawyers because they've never been sanctioned before. Can you imagine if we did that in criminal justice? He murdered someone, but he's never done it before. We're definitely not going to penalize him. That's what they said. They didn't want to sanction them because they never sanctioned them before. But what we didn't know was the week that Steve Little was taken off my case, my judge, Patrick Irvine, was appointed the head of the Character and Fitness Committee for Arizona. The committee that oversaw these cases.
What?
My judge from my case.
That's weird timing.
Oh, so weird. Isn't that so weird? That's why I say the bar's incapable of regulating. He wasn't going to allow something from his case to be sanctioned. There was no way.
Yeah.
It was corrupt. The bar can't govern itself. It's a good old boys club.
Stuff like this makes me lose faith in the legal system.
It should. My husband has no faith in it, and he's a lawyer. He believed in it with everything he had. And now we both say you only get the justice you can afford.
Yeah.
We have to change it.
It's super messed up. I mean, love him or hate him, Andrew Tate is dealing with a lot. you know?
Yeah, I was listening to a part of your podcast with him on the way over. There's a lot of legal stuff going on with him. Trump's had a lot of lawfare. Bobby Kennedy has had endless lawfare.
Mm-hmm.
Endless lawfare. There, a lot of people that were Kennedy supporters were upset when he crossed to Trump. I don't think the Democrats gave him any choice. He tried to run as a Democrat. He wanted to primary Biden. He was the only one calling to primary Biden. We all know now that should have happened.
Yep.
No matter what side of the fence you sit on, we all know that he wasn't, you know what I mean? Like, he was not all there. And he wanted to primary him, and everybody gave him hell for it. He ran as a Democrat. And then they sued him in every state until they bankrupted his campaign.
Wow.
The DNC sued him over and over and over again.
For what?
So what they did was, during the primary season, they changed all the primary rules so that he couldn't primary. They would say, if anyone primaries here, they're barred from getting electoral votes. I think it was New Hampshire. That might have been New Hampshire, where they literally said, if you primary Biden, you're not allowed to have any electoral college votes. There's no reason to get any electoral votes then. If you can't get them, why would you primary? Right? So they changed all these rules, so he had to go out and collect tens and hundreds of thousands of signatures, like New York.
Yeah.
They raised it so he had to have like 160,000 signatures. That's an astronomical number. Usually it's like 10,000. That's usually the cap. Okay? They changed all these laws so that he couldn't succeed. And every time he did, they would then sue him once he succeeded. My favorite was where they sued him in Nevada for getting on the ballot but not listing a vice president. And because he hadn't chosen Shanahan yet.
Yeah.
So they sued him for submitting all of his signatures for not having a vice president, even though he had it in writing from the state attorney and the electoral commission's office that he was allowed to do that. They said, you don't have to designate one. It was in writing. So he submitted it with no vice president. Then at the end, when he tried to take his name off the ballot, they sued him to keep it on there. When he had never had it adjudicated that he was taken off.
Yeah.
They then sued to keep it on because it was suddenly better for them.
Wow.
They just sued him over and over and over again. Lawfare is used everywhere. And the only people that win are the 1% of the 1%. They're winning everything. The lawyers are winning everything. And go check how many law firms are invested in by BlackRock.
Oh, I bet a lot. Yeah,
They own all the law firms that are
you
serving
need
them.
stupid money to have a winning record in lawfare.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you need a few money.
I mean, I'm in a little arbitration. Little arbitrations are supposed to be the cheap way, right? They're supposed to be, they say the average arbitration is supposed to cost like 10 grand. Mine, they said the stuff they were allowed to charge, which was only the counts they won on in my case. Because I won my defamation case. I won stuff in my case. They won one claim in my case. So they got to say what their fees were. Their fees for that one thing they won were $2.4 million.
Holy crap.
There were 11 claims in my case.
Just fees?
So for one of those claims and fees was $2.4 million.
So they made $20 million?
And no. I didn't actually have to pay them, but that's what they claimed. Because they ended up going and like filing in a court with a bunch of like forged affidavits, and so their judgment got thrown out.
Wow.
That's what happens in court. You can create accountability in court. You can't do that in arbitration, right? But their judge, in my case, got paid 27 grand a week for it. Case went on for months.
Damn, you found out he got paid?
We know that you have to pay to get in front of him.
Oh, really?
That's why I couldn't ask him to stop the harassment. I didn't have any money in my bank account with him.
Holy crap.
You have to pay for access to these judges. They can pay for unlimited access. Do you have the money to put in that account to keep charging him?
$27K a week?
A week. My judge, who was a civil servant, a Republican-appointed appellate judge in Arizona, literally, who was on civil servant money, 120 grand a year for the last couple of years, 60 grand before that, right? His whole career, civil servant money, said he had to suspend my case because he was spending a couple weeks on a yacht in like the south of Italy. Oh, really? Oh, how nice for you that must be. That's what that arbitrator money gets you. That's why they sell out so quickly. They've spent their whole career as a civil servant, and then they get handed a paycheck that's more money than they made in a year for working 2 weeks a month.
Yeah. I can't even say I blame them, honestly. You know?
That's why we are required to regulate a capitalist society. Capitalism could be a good vessel for economic mobility. It could be a good vessel for economic growth, for wealth creation, but it is still just at its core math. It is math, and it is math that is aimed at getting the most productivity, the most money for the fewest resources, which means at all times, capitalism is trying to get back to slavery. That is the most efficient economic model. You get unlimited productivity for no expenses. So it's always trying to get there. It is our job as humans. It is the job of regulators. It is their job to regulate past human passion, past the human condition, past our desires for money and power and greed, to make sure that the system is not corrupted.
Yeah.
We have failed in that endeavor. We are failing every day that BlackRock owns our government pension and they don't diversify it into a regular mutual fund.
Yeah.
We are failing every day that BlackRock is allowed to buy the most important shipping channel in the United States. We are failing every day that we allow judges to be bought and paid for in a cartel that is almost entirely centered here, actually. Almost all of the really bad arbitrations happen in Bedford, Texas, and in Arizona. They've built a cartel of these judges all coming here. Elon Musk, he just moved X's arbitration agreement to Bedford, Texas. That's where we have to litigate.
Yeah, because Tesla's under a lot of heat right now, right?
He just moved their terms and conditions to arbitration in Bedford, Texas, just like all the rest of them.
That is nuts. Yeah, I share similar views. I call it conscious capitalism. I like making money, obviously, but I don't do it at the expense of someone.
Yeah.
I don't want someone getting harmed for
Yeah.
make money. So,
I think everybody wants that.
yeah.
I don't think anybody's going to look at you and say, you should make money for what you do. You do an amazing podcast. You bring so much information to people. You should make money for that. The problem is when people have to do evil things to keep getting more. There comes a point where you can't spend it. You're just taking it from everyone else. And I am not saying we should have a line in the sand. I'm not saying that. But I am still trying to see an ethical way for someone with $100 billion to have gotten it. And I'm not finding that. We lack the ability to regulate all of that greed, all of that corruption out of our system. And that is why private equity is running amok. Because all they do is destroy, but it creates money. That's all they create. They literally destroy everything. They suck it out like a virus. And they leave it bereft, bankrupt, and empty. And they just funnel it to a couple billionaires. Those companies that used to be small businesses, those franchises that used to be small businesses, all those HVAC companies in Vegas, they used to sponsor sports teams. They used to show up at Little League games and sponsor boards. You know, that's what small businesses do.
Right.
They used to sponsor kids with cancer for Make-A-Wishes. That's what small businesses do. They also create 99.9% of all the jobs the last 22 years. Okay? Do you think that Champions Group is doing any of that?
Hell no.
Hell no. All of that money that used to pour into the community is now being funneled to billionaires somewhere else.
Yeah. They don't.
Hundreds of companies have now no longer put that money into your community, and Vegas is weaker for it.
Wow. Yeah, I don't get I love Vegas, obviously, but I don't get like that community aspect. You know?
Nobody likes my take on this, but we had it when the mob was there.
Yeah. I mean, like I go to the Summerlin Farmers Market, but that's the only community I really see. Tiffany, it's been awesome. Anything else you want to close off with here? Where can people find you?
They can find me on TikTok at Tiffany Cianci and on YouTube. And they can find me at the Vino Mom on X and Meta. Although I don't hang out on Meta much.
Yeah, we'll link below. Thanks for coming on again.
Thanks for having me.
Yep, check her out, guys.